Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So ChatGPT has been wild for a while now and literally everyone's using it for different purposes. But do you know that getting the exact answer that you want from GPT is actually an art? And the secret sauce is prompt engineering. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about what exactly is prompt engineering. Also, I'll be providing you with an example by talking to GPT to learn a new tech stack that you never learned in 3 months. So first, let's talk about prompt and prompt engineering. So when you're talking to ChatGPT, every question you ask is a prompt. And a prompt involves instructions and context passed to a model to achieve the desired tasks. And prompt engineering is a practice of developing and optimizing prompts to efficiently use language models for a variety of applications. There's really important skills for AI engineers and researchers to improve and efficiently use language models. So now you understand how does ChatGPT work and how does prompt engineering going to help to get the exact answer that we want from GPT. As someone working in the tech industry, there's always so many new tech stacks for us to learn. But how do I learn a new technology efficiently? Let's use ChatGPT for help, utilizing the power of prompt engineering. Now let's see a real-world example. Say that you wanted to learn a new tech stack, but you never had experience with it. So here I created a notebook using the OpenAI API and will be giving GPT prompts for us to learn quicker. If you're interested in this notebook, I shared the link in the description box below. And now let's dive into it. So first I'm going to import all of the modules that I need. I set up the API key, and here I wrote some customized functions just to get response from the prompt. So it is designed that we'll be giving GPT prompt and we can keep asking until we type exit. So as a data engineer, I've heard about Apache Kafka for a really long time, but I never had a chance to dive into this. The first prompt I'm going to give is, what is Apache Kafka? So let's try to ask, what is Apache Kafka? I'm going to copy and paste the prompt into this input box and ask GPT about this. Alright, so now I know the concepts about Kafka. I wanted to give a read about the documentation first. So I navigate to the official documentation by Apache Kafka. This is too long and I wanted to get a summarize out of it. I'm going to copy and paste this task and ask GPT to give me a summarization. So let's try to run this. And here GPT summarizes the paragraph for me about event streaming. Cool, but it's kind of still complex. And let's keep asking. I'll say summarize the above paragraph like I am. Okay, and actually it summarized event streaming to me in a pretty simple language. Moving on to the second part, which is about question answering. So here I'm actually providing some context to GPT about partition in Kafka. And I wanted GPT to answer my question based on this concept. So let's try to run this. So GPT is telling me that partition in Kafka is a way to separate topics into smaller and older logs which contain records. Okay, this sounds good. So I got a sense about what is partition in Kafka. After playing, this is actually a pretty fun one that we can tell what the role that we want GPT to be. So here we're going to tell GPT you're a principal data engineer and I'm a junior engineer eager to learn more about Apache Kafka. I want GPT to link me to the resources, to the concepts, as well as the sample code so that I can learn more. And let's see what GPT is going to give us. So this is pretty cool. GPT actually acts as a principal data engineer and lists some of the important concepts for us to understand. And it also gives us the correct link for us to go to view the relevant documentation. It will be a good way for us to list what kind of role that we want GPT to play on. GPT can also actually help with code generation. Again, we're going to ask GPT as the principal engineer, and I wanted to see some of the sample code for an application using Apache Kafka. Cool, so GPT actually provides us with some sample code to get started with the first application for Kafka. And this is just a basic example, and GPT gives us a pretty basic example. But I do think that I asked this way is kind of here and there, and I wanted to have a more concrete study plan. So here comes to the reasoning part. I want GPT to provide some mentorship to students that are interested in learning Kafka but did not have prior experience. I gave GPT the number of hours that I can dedicate, and I asked GPT to provide a 3-month study plan for someone that has some time to study 10 hours per week. And I do give some of the step-by-step guide for GPT to generate the exact answer that I want. So first, I wanted to list the concepts that it needs to be understood. Then provide study materials with URL links and hands-on projects with some sample repos. Now let's try to get some answers. Wow! So this is a quite detailed study plan, and it's actually broken into several weeks. So it's saying week 1, so for the first 2 weeks, I need to learn the introduction to Kafka, and there are some study materials for me to understand. And there's also some hands-on projects that GPT wants me to do. And for weeks 3 to 4, GPT wants me to learn more about Kafka architectures, same as the study materials and hands-on project provided. Now let's try to learn some of the advanced prompting techniques. First, let's introduce the concept of the zero-shot prompt. So the zero-shot prompt is where a model makes predictions without any additional training, which means directly asking GPT about what we want. So say that we want GPT to design a project for us to analyze a large dataset using Apache Kafka to learn some of the hands-on experience. And we wanted to provide related links and sample repos for each step. So GPT actually designed a project for us that I wanted to do. It breaks those concepts step by step and gave me some of the GitHub repos, which is pretty good. What if we wanted to add some external knowledge for GPT to learn and provide us with the more specific answer that we want? So we'll introduce the concept of the few-shot prompts. Few-shot prompting is a technique where the model is giving a small number of examples, typically between 2 and 5, in order to quickly adapt to new examples of previously seen objects. So here I'm providing GPT with some of the knowledge base I wanted to learn it from. So for example, I feed into the knowledge base about the difference between the traditional message queuing system versus Apache Kafka. And I wanted some help to make a decision between choosing these two given a specific use case scenario. And let's see what is the response. So here, GPT is actually utilizing what I fed into the knowledge base to give me the answer about the use case. Cool. Next, we'll talk about chain of thought prompting. So chain of thought prompting is a simple and broadly applicable method for improving the ability of language models to perform various of reasoning tasks. It is a recently developed prompting method which encourages the language model to explain its reasoning. So compared to the standard prompting, the chain of thought prompting actually will explain the reasons for us why the answer is like that. And for example, I wanted to learn more about the business value from Apache Kafka because it is kind of expensive and wanted to learn more why an organization should adapt to it. Here, I gather some of the knowledge, different use cases, the reasons why they are using Apache Kafka for data streaming. It actually summarizes a pretty nice paragraph to me. Here, I mentioned some use cases in e-commerce and for fraud detection, and it's actually summarized pretty well in this paragraph for me. And next, we'll talk about the generated knowledge prompting. So the idea behind the generated knowledge approach is to ask the language model to generate potentially useful information about a given question or prompt before generating a final response. So here you can see the diagram about how the model is learning from the knowledges and integrate the knowledge into the answer. And whenever we're learning something new, there's always issues that we're overcome when we're there's always bugs that we wanted to fix. And for example, I had this connection issue when I'm trying to connect to Apache Kafka. And I did some research on Stack Overflow about a similar problem that someone else had, and I wanted GPT to answer me about my issue using this integrated knowledge. Now let's try to see what answer GPT will give us. Okay. So it gives me some of the potential issues that I should look at to troubleshoot my application. This is pretty useful and gives me a few hints when I'm trying to troubleshoot my bug. And lastly, we were talking about code as reasoning. So code-as reasoning is an example for the program-aided language model. It means that when given a question, the program-aided language model is able to write code that solves this question. So they send code to a programmatic runtime to get a result. And code-as reasoning is in contrast to COT that we talked about, because for the program-aided language model, its intermediate reasoning is code, while for chain of thought, it is natural language. And now let's see an example. So say that we have found some of the code to write the basic producer as well as the consumer for Apache Kafka, and I wanted to use the code-as reasoning and write a new application. Okay. So here there's a mini application that GPT provided using both Kafka producer and consumer in the Java code that I provided. Now it's possible that GPT has some errors while generating this code, so it's important for us to test this out and debug ourselves if there's any issues. And lastly, I wanted to talk about LangChain. So LangChain uses the language model to determine which actions to take and in what order. It utilizes the agent to use and a tool, which is a function that performs a specific duty. And so here I'm using the zero-shot reaction description agent, and I wanted to run a prompt as how should I learn Kafka efficiently and gain the skill for the future employer. Okay, so the agent finished running and it's giving me some of the advice. Chain is a pretty cool library that I encourage you to play with. And that's it for today's video. I hope you learned something new about prompt engineering and understand the science and art when you're talking to GPT. And hey, talking to GPT is like talking to a human being, and they need training. And they'll need you to say the exact and precise question that you want. And guess what? Using the power of AI, we can now learn something much more faster. I hope you liked today's video. If you have any feedback or any new ideas about prompt engineering, please leave a comment. And if you wanted to more video like this, please like my video and subscribe to my channel. And I'll see you next time. Bye!